looking at the offensive that was easily destroyed by the protective sword energy on Gu Changqing's body. Not to mention the monks watching the battle around. Even the Daluo Palace Master himself couldn't help but open his eyes wide, and some couldn't believe his eyes, although he didn't use his full strength on that sword light. But no one knows how powerful it is better than him. In his opinion, even if this sword can't kill Gu Changqing, it is definitely more than enough to seriously injure him. But now, Gu Changqing actually resisted it easily. If this is all you can do, then I will be too disappointed. Gu Changqing's voice came, and there was a sense of disappointment from the heart in his tone, which made the Daluo Palace Master's face become more and more livid. Good, good, good. He laughed in anger, let out a long roar, and flicked his sleeves. Clang! A sound of sword ringing exploded. And then, it was 9 consecutive sword-ringing sounds, resounding through the sky behind the Daluo Palace Master. 9 long swords with blood-red light rose up, forming a knife wheel behind him. Daluo Knife Wheel. This is the Imperial Divine Weapon that the Daluo Palace Master is famous for. 9-layer knife wheel. One knife wheel is a middle-level Imperial Divine Weapon, and the 9 layers together are enough to be compared with the 5th level, high-level Imperial Divine Weapons. Daluo Palace Master even took out this weapon. It seems that he is really serious. All the cultivators in the audience held their breath unconsciously, and the Daluo Palace Master looked at Gu Changqing with an arrogant expression, trying to see some panic expression on his face. But Gu Changqing's expression was still calm, and there was no emotional fluctuation. I hope you can be so calm next time, Daluo Palace Master said in a low voice and flicked his robe sleeves. Swoosh! The terrifying blade wheel, composed of 9 layers of blood-colored scimitars, under the infusion of its spiritual power, rubbed the sea of clouds, drew a long blood light, and quickly rushed towards Gu Changqing's position. Wherever the blade wheel passed, the sea of clouds suddenly cracked, and the void made a tooth-grinding sound of breaking, as if it was about to be cut by the lifelong divine weapon of this giant god emperor. In just a moment, the blade wheel came in front of Gu Changqing and hit Gu Changqing's body, and then, dang! The sound of flesh and blood breaking was different from what everyone expected. Gu Changqing was not wiped out by the Daluo blade wheel, but at the critical moment, he condensed a sword light with his spiritual power and actually collided directly with the Daluo blade wheel. Dang 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 dang! Above the sea of clouds, swords and knives collided, and the sound of metal and iron clashing exploded like thunder, making all the cultivators in the audience dumbfounded. Gu Changqing used his spiritual power as a sword, condensing a series of sword lights, which were full of chaotic energy and seemed to be able to collapse mountains and rivers. He was evenly matched with the Daluo Palace Master in the distance. Although the Daluo knife wheel was terrifying and full of murderous aura, but under Gu Changqing's defense, it could not get close to Gu Changqing's 3 feet in front of him, and was completely blocked by his sword light. I must be dreaming. This Gu family god king is so powerful. The Daluo Palace Master took out his Daluo knife wheel, but he couldn't take him down. Is he really just a god king? With such killing power, no one would doubt that he is a god queen. Monster. Absolutely a monster. All the monks watching the battle were dumbfounded, and the face of the Daluo Palace Master became more and more gloomy. He and Gu Changqing were evenly matched. It was an honor for Gu Changqing, but it was a shame for the Lord of Daluo Palace. He had crossed 3 realms and used his own divine weapon, but he still couldn't take Gu Changqing. How could he accept this? Go to hell. The Lord of Daluo Palace let out a long roar and spurted out a blood arrow. The blood contained spiritual power and splashed on the Daluo knife wheel that he had called back to his body. Along with this essence of life, it was refined in the knife wheel. Buzz! The divine light and murderous aura burst out from the Daluo knife wheel on that side surged again, and the aura soared a lot, and then rushed towards Gu Changqing. After doing all this, the Lord of Daluo Palace stared at Gu Changqing in the distance, and his divine thoughts and aura firmly locked Gu Changqing's position. Even if Gu Changqing started to dodge now, he had the confidence to activate his Daluo knife wheel and chase him at the first time. However, facing the offensive of the terrifying knife wheel, Gu Changqing, however, did not dodge as the Daluo Palace Master had expected, but narrowed his eyes slightly. With a regretful tone, is it still a bit difficult to deal with the Queen of Gods with my own strength? Gu Changqing could feel it. If he blocked the Daluo Palace Master's secret method, it would not be a big deal. Can't stop, just get hurt. It seems that without using the Juxian sword formation, his killing power is equivalent to the powerful mid-stage god emperor. Compared with the real god queen stage giant, there is still a certain gap. In this case, Juxian sword formation. Open. Gu Changqing let out a long roar immediately. Swish, swish, swish. Behind him, as the spiritual power surged, 4 dazzling sword lights rose up like 4 light dragons, straight into the sky, and the mighty sword energy spread out. Under Gu Changqing's control, it turned into a magnificent and boundless killing formation. In the killing formation, the sword light shone, the cold light swept, and the killing aura covered the entire battlefield at this moment. The 3 giants, including the soul-devouring god emperor, who were watching the battle from a distance, all changed color slightly, and felt a threat from that killing formation. What kind of killing array is this? The Immortal Execution Sword Array. What a big name. The Daluo Palace Master also changed his face. He was fighting with Gu Changqing, and he felt the Immortal Execution Sword Array that Gu Changqing was activating at the moment most directly. He only felt the murderous aura floating in the sky, locking his figure. However, Looking at the 4 sword beams summoned by Gu Changqing, although they were magnificent and shocking, they were only 4 king-level swords after all. He gritted his teeth fiercely. I don't believe that you, a mere god king, can turn the world upside down. The voice fell. Boom. His Daluo knife wheel turned into a blood-colored long rainbow and crashed into the immortal execution sword array set up by Gu Changqing. However, Gu Changqing's face was not afraid, but instead he raised a sneer. You asked for it. The next second, under the horrified gaze of the crowd, thousands of sword lights rose up from the Juxian sword formation, like a meteor shower, continuously bombarding the Daluo sword wheel that the Daluo Palace Master had cultivated for countless years to achieve. It took only a few breaths. The Daluo sword wheel that even ordinary giants in the late God Queen period dared not resist, trembled and collapsed in front of Gu Changqing's Juxian sword formation in full view of the crowd, and finally turned into a ball of spiritual light and exploded. Puff! The Daluo Palace Master spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot when his life spirit weapon was destroyed. Looking at Gu Changqing, there was an unconcealable shock and astonishment in his eyes. How could your strength be so strong? The Palace Master of Daluo Tiangong almost shouted this sentence. Gu Changqing's realm is only that of a god king. The whole place was silent. Above the sea of clouds, there was only the Juxian sword formation, emitting boundless cold light, and the murderous sword energy swept across the sky, making people afraid, and everyone's eyes were all focused on the center of the sword formation. There were still some spiritual fragments floating on the sea of clouds. It was the imperial spiritual weapon, the Daluo blade wheel, that the Daluo Palace Master had cultivated for many years, but at this moment, the Daluo blade wheel was as fragile as paper in front of the Juxian sword formation summoned by Gu Changqing. In just a few breaths, it was shattered by the sky-high sword light, causing the Daluo Palace Master to spit blood on the spot. Looking at Gu Changqing, there was an unconcealable horror in his eyes. This kid used strange means. We must not hold back. Seeing that the Daluo Palace Master actually suffered a great loss at the hands of Gu Changqing, the original Yulong Vice Palace Master, and even Long Yu and Tun Hun, the 2 giants of the Divine Emperor Perfection realm, could not sit still. The 3 Divine Emperor giants came down at the same time and rushed directly to the Juxian sword formation summoned by Gu Changqing, and with the previous experience of the Daluo Palace Master, they were much more cunning. They did not rush into the killing formation and confront Gu Changqing head-on. Instead, they chose to activate their own spiritual weapons and secret methods outside the formation to bombard the Juxian sword formation. The Daluo Palace Master also came to his senses. In addition, the Yulong Vice Palace Master persuaded him from the side. Brother, don't worry. This boy's sword formation is strange and unpredictable. If you can capture him and force him to tell you this method, I think the value is enough to offset the Daluo knife wheel. As soon as these words came into his ears, the Daluo Palace Master's mind became active, and the look in his eyes when he looked at Gu Changqing became more and more fiery. In fact, it was not just him. Even those family elders invited by Yue Baifeng and his friends who came to help, but were actually just cheering and watching the battle, heard the words of Deputy Palace Master Yulong. Their hearts became active. This Gu Changqing, with his strength, was really terrifying. If he could be captured, what could be gained was more than just a set of Juxian sword formation. His cultivation method, and even himself, could be a huge treasure trove. Immediately, Palace Master Daluo also suppressed the heartache of the destruction of his spiritual weapon and also rushed into the battle group. As for those Qianhuang Xuanhuangs who were moved by the words of Deputy Palace Master Yulong and whose minds were active, although they also wanted to step forward. But looking at Gu Changqing, who had been besieged by the 4 divine emperors, they hesitated for a while and did not dare to enter rashly. This level of battle was not something they could participate in. They had a clear understanding of their own strength, just for Gu Changqing's previous record of killing Elder Yunnan of Daluo Tiangong with a slap, even if this person is now under siege. If he can spare his hands and slap them, even if they are lucky enough to save their lives, the injuries they suffer will not be good. Besides, 4 giants attacking a god king at the same time. Really? It's a bit shameless. How much is face worth? However, the development of the battle made all of them dumbfounded. Above the sea of clouds, the Juxian sword formation flashed thousands of cold rays. The cold murderous intent flowed, and the boundless sword light soared into the sky. The terrifying evil spirit made these monks who were watching the battle feel that it was difficult to breathe. All the offenses fell on the evil spirit caused by the sword light, and they were directly resolved and flattened without damaging the foundation of the formation. The sword light reflected by the formation made the Daluo Palace Master and others dare not take it head on. Even to the end, the 4 of them no longer dared to launch any offensive and could only dodge and avoid the terrifying sword light that kept surging out of the Juxian sword formation. It was obvious that they were suppressed by the Juxian sword formation and Gu Changqing alone. 4 great emperors. 2 of them were in the late stage of the goddess, and 2 were perfect, but they were defeated by a god king. I'm afraid that no one would believe it if I told them, and they would only think it was a fairy tale. So, this is the real strength of fellow Taoist Gu. At the other end of the sea of clouds, Emperor Xuan looked at the sword formation from afar, walking on the clouds, as if strolling in the garden, and casually wielding the Juxian sword light, forcing the 4 great emperors to panic. Gu Changqing, who was like a sword fairy, muttered to himself, a pair of beautiful eyes, for a moment, couldn't help but be a little crazy, and a heart couldn't help but tremble. She had seen countless geniuses, she herself was a super genius, but compared with Gu Changqing in front of her, I can only say that they are not on the same level at all. Fellow Taoist Changqing is no longer a genius, but a monster. The novel was taken from the Rollies website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. And below, the monks watching the battle were dumbfounded. They never dreamed that Gu Changqing's strength can be so strong. Especially those people of the Zhang family. Their brains are almost unable to turn around. As for Luo Shengyue in the distance, let alone, originally, she saw Gu Changqing raise his hand and slap a perfect emperor to death, which made the girl unable to think. And now, she saw Gu Changqing fighting against the 4 emperors alone, suppressing them in a panic. Luo Shengyue felt that the battle in front of her was just like a dream. Is this the strength that the Lingbang Tinjiao can achieve? This is fucking... Among the emperor giants in the Lingyu, there are only a few who can do this. She felt more and more that she was so depressed before that she even thought about coming to challenge Gu Changqing and use Gu Changqing as her whetstone to sharpen her martial arts. Luo Shengyue now has only one thought in her mind, that is to be thankful. Fortunately, Luo Tiangong led the crowd to come at the critical moment and helped me block it. Otherwise, if I really faced Gu Changqing, I was afraid that just when everyone was shocked, on the Luo Tiangong side, those friends who said they would come to help Yue Baifeng also saw that Luo Tiangong had fallen into a huge disadvantage. They all changed color slightly and subconsciously looked at the elders in their clan and sect. Master Clan Elder, don't we take action? Yes, Clan Elder. We agreed before that we would advance and retreat with Brother Yue. Hearing their words, those monks who were watching the battle all changed color slightly. These Tianhuang Xuanhuang may not be strong enough, but they are numerous. If they take action, do not enter the field, and just focus on the Gu family, even with Xuanhuang in charge. It will be difficult to protect them for a while. Who knows? It can really change the situation. However, those emperors who came to help, all of them were calm and unmoved, standing on the spirit boats of their respective families and sects, but they did not move at all. Just kidding. Although they agreed to the request of the younger generation of the clan and came to help Yue Baifeng, but they are not fools. Seeing Gu Changqing showing such strength, they still went to help Yue Baifeng and Luo Tiangong. What a joke. If Luo Tiangong and Soul Devouring Sect were defeated in this battle, these forces who helped would definitely be liquidated. So it would be better to continue to watch from the sidelines. Therefore, after hearing the words of the younger generation, these kings immediately scolded in a cold voice, "Shut up. I have my own decision. Why do you younger generations have a turn to complain?" Hearing their words, in the distance, the eyes of the Luo Palace Master and others who were fighting hard became colder and colder. However, their reaction did not exceed the expectations of the Lord of Luo Palace. These forces, who came to help, originally came for the sake of profit. Now that they saw that they could not hold on, it was reasonable for them to stand by and watch. Fortunately, you forced me to do it. As the Lord of the Divine Emperor Force of Luo Palace, the Lord of Luo Palace has always had many cards in his hands. However, before he set out, he did not expect that he would be forced to this point. His eyes were full of pain, and the murderous intent in his eyes when he looked at Gu Changqing was becoming more and more turbulent. "Young man, I will capture you alive. I will force you to tell me all your secrets, and I will make you and your people live a life worse than death." The Lord of Luo Palace let out a long roar. Immediately, he slapped the storage bag. Swoosh. A stream of fiery red light appeared, and it was a red elixir. This elixir, with its Dao rhyme soaring into the sky and its medicinal energy astonishing, was like a flame, burning and rising in strands. The moment it appeared, a red sea of fire appeared on the sea of clouds, which was extremely terrifying. The 5th level top level precious elixir, blood-burning soul pill. Seeing this precious elixir, even the soul-devouring divine emperor and the moon spirit cried out in unison. The Luo Palace Master, with a grim smile, swallowed the precious elixir into his body without hesitation, and immediately activated the internal skills, condensation, with a low shout from him. Boom! With the blessing of that precious elixir, his momentum began to surge step by step. In the blink of an eye, he broke through the barrier of the Divine Emperor realm and rushed directly into the Saint Emperor level. The 5th level top level precious pill, the blood-burning soul pill, is a precious pill that even the Saint Emperor would be tempted by. This pill is the supreme trump card for the Emperor Realm Powerhouse. When used by the powerhouses below the Saint Emperor, they can directly increase their own strength by several small realms. When used by the Saint Emperor powerhouses, they can also instantly increase their strength by a small realm, like the Luo Palace Master, the Queen Realm of the Gods. After swallowing this pill, directly under the catalysis of the drug power, his own strength was increased to the level of the early Saint Emperor. Of course, this strength increase is not permanent. It can only be maintained for a quarter of an hour, and the price paid is also quite painful. This quarter of an hour of the Saint Emperor realm requires the Luo Palace Master to burn a full 1,000 years of life to achieve it. Therefore, at this moment, the Luo Palace Master stared at Gu Changqing with murderous intent in his eyes. Crazy to the extreme. Gu Changqing, you forced me to use this trump card. You must die today. The Lord of Luo Palace roared, waved his hand, and his spiritual power turned into a giant palm. He no longer dodged the sword light, driven by the Juxian sword formation, like before. The giant hand condensed by his spiritual power was able to block the sword energy and light from the Juxian sword formation. Such a terrifying killing power made the monks watching the battle hold their breath involuntarily. And this is not the end. After blocking the bombardment of the Juxian sword formation, the Lord of Dalluo Palace raised his hand again and suddenly tore the void. Immediately, under the extremely shocked eyes of the monks watching the battle, and even the divine emperor giants such as Longyu and Tunhun next to him, he actually took out a knife wheel again. However, it was different from the Dalluo knife wheel that was wiped out by Gu Changqing's sword formation. Before, this sect's knife wheel is made up of 36 pitch-black long knives. If the Dalluo knife wheel that the Dalluo Palace Master has refined is full of murderous aura, it seems that it has been made by slaughtering countless lives. Then, this side of the black as ink knife wheel has a very restrained aura. It is like a black hole. It can swallow all the enemies that stand in its way. Is this the ancestral weapon of Dalluo Tiangong? Demon Wheel of Devouring Heaven. Soul-devouring Divine Emperor exclaimed. The Demon Wheel of Devouring Heaven is the supreme treasure left by the venerable who founded Dalluo Tiangong during its most prosperous period. A 6th level divine weapon. According to legend, the first generation of the Palace Master of Dalluo Tiangong killed 3 heavenly venerables with this heaven-devouring demon wheel. At that time, it was still in the Golden Age, and the spirit realm was full of venerables. He left a great reputation, and only then was the inheritance of Dalluo Tiangong established. However, after his death, the Golden Age gradually came to an end. It was difficult for venerables to appear in the spirit realm, and Dalluo Tiangong had not produced a Saint Emperor for several generations and tens of thousands of years. The 6th level divine weapon, the heaven-devouring demon wheel, has naturally been silent and stored in the deepest part of Dalluo Tiangong, but no one expected that the Palace Master of Dalluo had always brought it with him, and even drove it out this time. The soul-devouring Divine Emperor and the moon-devouring Emperor looked at the Palace Master of Dalluo holding the heaven-devouring demon wheel, whose aura was chasing the Saint Emperor. They all swallowed unconsciously, and their bodies retreated to the left and right, keeping a distance from the Palace Master of Dalluo. The strength of the current Dalluo Palace Master has made both of them feel afraid, and their fear makes the Dalluo Palace Master feel a little more pleased. He looked at Gu Changqing and the main sword formation from afar, with an arrogant tone. You should feel honored to die under the ancestral weapon of my Dalluo Palace, the heaven-devouring demon wheel. Back then, he was the first generation Palace Master of Dalluo Palace, holding this knife wheel, and even the heavenly venerable had been killed. Now, although he is not worthy, but with the blessing of the burning blood and soul pill, I can activate this heaven-devouring demon wheel, and my strength is enough to be compared with the real heavenly venerable. Listening to the words of the Dalluo Palace Master, the heartbeats of all of the cultivators in the audience stopped for a beat. The venerable realm is already a myth in the current spiritual realm, and it is already a legendary existence, not to mention the heavenly venerable. Even Xuanzun, who is below Tianzun, has not appeared in the spirit realm for many years. Now, the strength of Dalluo Palace Master can actually be compared with Tianzun. Looking at Dalluo Palace Master on the Sea of Clouds, even the Divine Emperor of Misty Moon and the Divine Emperor of Devouring Souls were full of fear. They had never seen Tianzun, but judging from the aura of Dalluo Palace Master, which was far superior to theirs at the moment, it seemed that Dalluo Palace Master was not bragging. And Xuanhuang in the distant sky could not help but sigh. This is the foundation of the giants in the spirit realm. It has been passed down for a long time, even if it has become a little bit even in decline. The trump card you play can still turn the tide at the critical moment. She sighed in her heart. Facing the powerful aura of the Dalluo Palace Master, she felt despair in her heart. I am afraid that I will die here today. I didn't expect that I would have to embark on a dead end again, not long after I recovered. However, Emperor Xuan did not blame Gu Changqing. The strength shown by Gu Changqing has already made Emperor Xuan extremely amazed. The immortal sword formation, fighting the 4 emperors alone, with the realm of the God King. The 4 giants were defeated and had to use external objects and ancestral weapons. Such a record is unprecedented in history. It is no exaggeration to say that it is shocking. Gu Changqing has tried his best. It's just that the opponent's foundation is far beyond the Gu family, so he can't be blamed. What's more, her life was given by Gu Changqing. How could she be ungrateful and blame Gu Changqing again? Gu Daoyu, I will do my best to fight for a chance for you. Please don't hesitate. The Queen Xuan let out a sigh of relief, and her voice gathered into a line, which fell into Gu Changqing's ears. Immediately, her aura began to gather. However, this time, the Queen Xuan no longer had the confidence to say anything about helping Gu Changqing and leading the tribe to escape. The opponent was a being comparable to the Heavenly Venerable. Even if she tried her best, regardless of her injuries, and burned her essence to the extreme sublimation, she could not withstand this attack. The only thing she could do was to use her life to fight for a glimmer of hope for Gu Changqing, a moment of escape time. Want to run? Can you run? Seeing the change in the Queen Xuan's breath, in the distance, the Lord of Dalluo Palace laughed grimly and waved his hand suddenly. Clang! The heaven-devouring demon wheel was activated by him. The Holy Emperor's spiritual power, like a river or a vast ocean, was madly infused into the demon wheel at this moment. The 36 black longswords that made up this demon wheel lit up one after another, and a terrifying black mist that could swallow everything rose up. As the last long sword rose up, the black mist rose up. This heaven-devouring demon wheel had already turned into a black spiral that was about 10 feet long and silently rotating. It was really like a black hole, sucking in the surrounding spiritual energy. All of them were swallowed up crazily. It is said that when the first generation of Daluo Palace Master activated this treasure wheel, even the moonlight and sunlight would be swallowed up, and the world would be dimmed for a moment. That scene still makes me yearn for it. Looking at the black mediation rising in the distant sky, the corner of the mouth of the Daluo Palace Master also raised a happy smile, whispering softly, "Now I, as a junior, may not be as good as my ancestors, but it is easy to kill you too." He is not afraid that after one round, he will kill Gu Changqing and Xuanhuang and fail to obtain their skills. This devouring heaven demon wheel will only kill the flesh, but the soul will be directly absorbed into the magic wheel. At that time, it will be more convenient for him, the Daluo Palace Master, to torture Gu Changqing. "Come to me. Die." The Lord of Daluo Palace shouted loudly, waved his hand fiercely, and a palm fell. The black mediator, like a meteorite, streaked across the sky and rushed towards Gu Changqing and Xuanhuang. Wherever the mediator passed, the black mist was hazy and dyed the sky black. From a distance, it seemed that what was attacking Gu Changqing and Xuanhuang was not a knife wheel, but a black sea. There was no way to dodge. There was no place to dodge. At this moment, the sky and the earth were all swallowed by the darkness, shrouded. Is this the power of the Heavenly Venerable? The heaven-devouring demon wheel caused the infinite black mist to turn into a vast sea, sweeping across the 8 wastelands, suppressing everything, and making Xuanhuang completely desperate. She had originally thought that perhaps if she tried her best, she could still fight for a glimmer of life for Gu Changqing. But when the devouring heaven wheel was activated, the boundless pressure came down. Even if she was a giant of the Divine Emperor, it was difficult to mobilize her own spiritual power, even a little bit. In the face of that pressure, it's over. Some cultivators looked at the devouring heaven wheel in the air, which fell down with a bang, and couldn't help but sigh softly, attracting many people to nod slightly. Indeed, everything will end, no matter how powerful Gu Changqing is. He can't resist this terrifying offensive. The end of the Tianjiao is a pity. But all this is Gu Changqing's own fault after all. Some people sneered with cold eyes, and many cultivators stared at the direction of Jiang Lincheng's Gu family, with greed flashing in their eyes. The Gu family collapsed and was destroyed today. The power they left behind would definitely not be looked down upon by the Daluo Tiangong. But for the surrounding forces, it would be a supreme feast. But most of the old cultivators were still sighing in their hearts. After all, Gu Changqing's talent was too dazzling. If he is given time to grow up, the spirit realm cannot restrain him. And he can definitely go to a wider world and achieve achievements that all the cultivators in the spirit realm look up to. However, they sighed and lamented. But they also understood. Gu Changqing's ending is a more normal result. This world has never lacked geniuses. But you must learn to restrain your edge. Only by being aggressive can you have a day when you can truly be as bright as the sun in the sky. Otherwise, you will be like Gu Changqing, like a comet, spinning up and disappearing. There are even old men pointing at Gu Changqing in the air, teaching the younger generation of their clan. And the Daluo Palace Master in the distance, his eyes are even more expectant, waiting for Gu Changqing's soul to be obtained, and the sword formation and inheritance to be plundered from his soul. As for the question of whether Gu Changqing can escape a catastrophe, he simply disdains to think about it. In front of this old man who is comparable to Tianzun, any possibility of reversal will no longer exist. Daluo Palace Master, full of confidence. Although he had never seen the real Tianzun, it did not prevent him from being extremely confident in his current strength. However, just as he finished speaking, enough to be on par with Tianzun, I don't believe it. In the distance, Gu Changqing's voice rang out quietly. Immediately, under the shocked gaze of the whole audience, swoosh, a crack in the void suddenly opened up beside Gu Changqing, and then an old man in a gray robe walked out of the crack. This old man had a simple appearance and a restrained aura. Only his eyes were extremely deep and far-reaching, as if they contained an infinite galaxy. The moment he appeared, he took a step forward and blocked Gu Changqing in front of him, protecting Gu Changqing behind him. Or rather, behind it. Dang. The next second, the sky-devouring demon wheel, with the terrifying sea of boundless black fog, slammed in front of Gu Changqing. However, before it got close to Gu Changqing, the knife wheel, along with the endless black fog on it, was held by the gray-robed old man in one hand. And then, crack! A flash of light suddenly appeared in the old man's hand. Boundless pressure swept across the old man, with just a slight tremor. The endless black fog covering the devouring heavenly demon wheel was completely shattered and dispersed, leaving only the devouring heavenly demon wheel, which was easily collected and refined into the body. As for the remains on it, the first generation of the Palace Master of Daluo Tiangong and the spiritual mark left by the Palace Master of Daluo as soon as the black fog shattered. It was completely shattered and wiped out by the gray-robed old man who suddenly landed on the battlefield. The whole process was slow to say, but it ended in an instant. The devouring heavenly demon wheel, which was regarded as the greatest reliance by the Palace Master of Daluo, was easily collected and refined by the old man next to Gu Changqing. But it made everyone present open their eyes involuntarily, and their expressions were like seeing a ghost. What happened? The devouring heaven demon wheel was taken away by someone. The voices of people sucking in their breath came one after another. The Dalo Palace Master couldn't help but exclaim, and his voice was filled with shock. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. How could you easily take away my devouring heaven demon wheel? His strength is comparable to that of a heavenly venerable. He is suspected of bragging, but in the eyes of the Dalo Palace Master, according to the records in the Dalo Heavenly Palace, the attack he just launched should not be blocked by ordinary Xuanzun. But now, not only was this attack blocked, but even the devouring heaven demon wheel was taken away by the opponent. Then what is the strength of the old man in front of him? The middle stage of Xuanzun. The late stage? Perfect. Or heavenly venerable. There was silence on the battlefield. Everyone's eyes were looking at the gray-robed old man beside Gu Changqing. There was an unconcealable awe in their eyes. This gray-robed old man was naturally Gu Changqing's Tianlian god puppet. As an accompanying treasure of Gu Changqing's Tianlian saint body, the strength of this Tianlian god puppet can grow with the growth of Gu Changqing's strength. However, its starting strength is extremely terrifying. Gu Changqing's realm is only the early stage of God King, but the strength of this Tianlian god puppet is already the real early stage of Tianzun, let alone dealing with a so-called venerable who relies on treasure pills and magic weapons. Even if the Dalo Palace Master takes out another treasure pill and raises his realm to the Xuanzun realm, the Tianlian god puppet can also be dealt with. Not far away, Huan Huang, who had already made the utmost sublimation and prepared for a desperate battle, was also extremely stunned. After a moment, he came back to his senses and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Looking at Gu Changqing, they couldn't help but feel a little resentful. So, he has never relied on me. I have always been worried about Gu Changqing, and I am planning to fight for a chance of survival for Gu Changqing. Feeling Xuan Huang's resentful eyes, Gu Changqing felt a little embarrassed. But now is not the time to entangle these things. His eyes fell on the Daluo Palace Master opposite, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Daluo Palace Master, with your little ability, you dare to say that you are on par with Tianzun. I think you are far inferior to Xuanzun. Listening to Gu Changqing's undisguised mocking words, the Daluo Palace Master, who had been shocked by the strength of the Tianlian god puppet, finally came back to his senses. Looking at the Tianlian god puppet in the distance, his figure couldn't help but retreat again and again, and the soul-devouring god emperor of the soul-devouring sect, and the Longyu god emperor invited by Hua Lianyi of the Hua family. But he was more direct than the Dalo Palace Master, especially the Dark Moon God Emperor. He even ignored the little princess of the Hua family. He rolled up his sleeves and turned into a beam of light and flew away into the distance. As for the soul-devouring God Emperor, he was even more straightforward and directly exploded his soul-devouring mist. It dispersed and turned into hundreds of souls and began to flee. In this way, the soul-devouring fog that he had worked so hard to refine would definitely be seriously damaged. But as long as one soul could escape, he could save his life and there was a possibility of rebuilding in the future. As for the heavy losses, are you kidding? The strength of the gray-robed old man invited by Gu Changqing, even if he was not a Tianzun, was a real Xuanzun realm strongman. Moreover, he was not an ordinary Xuanzun. Even the ancestral weapon of Dalo Tiangong, the heaven-devouring demon wheel, was taken away by him, not to mention the two perfect god emperors. Even if there were another 20 in front of such a strong man, there would only be the end of falling. Go! Can you get away? Looking at the crazy fleeing god emperor giant, Gu Changqing smiled coldly. The number of times the heavenly refining god puppet can be used is so precious, since you have to attack. You must hit hard and hurt hard. No need to hold back. All the enemies in front of me will be killed, Gu Changqing ordered in a deep voice. Yes, obey my master. The heavenly refining god puppet responded, without any emotion in his voice. The moment the voice fell, he flashed up, like a rock spreading its wings, and in an instant, he caught up with the fleeing Hua family giant. The Moon God Emperor. I am the elder of the Hua family in the spirit realm. My Hua family has the Saint Emperor Giant sitting in charge. If the senior is willing to spare my life, everyone in my Hua family is willing to serve you. Looking at the gray-robed old man who caught up, the Moon God Emperor was completely desperate, and there was no trace of his previous arrogance. He kept begging, but the heavenly refining god puppet ignored his words and raised his hand directly in front of a great master in the venerable realm, bringing up the Saint Emperor. Is it a bit too ridiculous? With a casual palm strike, this giant who dominated the spirit realm and reached the perfection of the divine emperor was smashed into a ball of blood mist before he could even scream. The monks watching the battle around him all twitched their eyebrows. That was a giant who reached the perfection of the divine emperor. Looking at the entire spirit realm, they were all absolutely top-level masters. And now, he was beaten to death so easily, just like an ant. Is this the true strength of the venerable? The hearts of the Daluo Palace Master and the Yulong Deputy Palace Master were extremely terrified, and the soul-devouring divine emperor, who had turned into more than 100 souls and escaped in the distance, shuddered violently when he saw this scene, and burned the spiritual power in his body regardless of everything, wanting to escape further. However, the Tianlian divine puppet just flicked his sleeve slightly. Boom! A terrifying devouring force far exceeding the previous one caused by the Daluo Palace Master when he activated the devouring heaven demon wheel surged from his sleeves. In just a moment, All the hundreds of souls separated by the soul-devouring divine emperor were absorbed and refined, turning into nothingness. Seeing another perfect divine emperor die, the two palace masters of Daluo Tiangong and Yue Baifeng were completely dumbfounded, seeing that the gaze of Tianlian Shenkui was about to fall on them. The Daluo palace master hurriedly bowed forward and wanted to beg for mercy from Gu Changqing, but Gu Changqing did not give them this opportunity at all. Bang! 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 The Tianlian, Shenkui, just raised his hand from a distance, and 3 streams of light fell like meteorites. In just a moment, it bombarded Yue Baifeng and the 2 palace masters of Daluo Tiangong, but it accurately wiped out all 3 of them and killed them into ashes. Gudong. Looking at the Daluo Tiangong people who turned directly into ashes, all the cultivators present felt that their throats were a little dry. The result of this battle was beyond their imagination. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would never have thought of it. In the entire spiritual realm, the Daluo Tiangong, which was the dominant force, the main and deputy palace masters, and the giants in the queen god period, all died so easily, just like 2 ants being crushed to death. However, thinking of the more miserable death of the Longyu divine emperor and the soul-devouring divine emperor of the soul-devouring sect, they all felt that such a result was somewhat natural. The shock in their hearts was also reduced a little. They even felt a little numb. The most shocked and dazed were naturally the Zheng family. They originally wanted to see the scene of the Gu family's demise, but they never expected it. Instead of seeing the scene of the Gu family's demise, they saw the Gu family's real trump card. Even the Daluo Palace, a giant force that the Zheng family did not even have the qualifications to look up to, and was not qualified to appear in their vision, could be suppressed by Gu Changqing. How could they not be shocked? And how could they not regret it? If they could be a little more attentive to the Gu family, even if they did not need to be too attentive, they could just be a little more courteous and keep a little bit of incense. With the current strength of the Gu family, how much benefit could their Zheng family get? Dominate Han and Qin. Even dominating the southern part of the spirit realm, or even the entire spirit realm, is probably not a dream. But now, these ideas have become a dream bubble, and those cultivators of the Han and Qin empires could not help but murmur, looking at Gu Changqing on the sea of clouds. There was awe in their eyes that could not be hidden. After today, who dares to say that the Gu family has fallen? The forces outside the Han and Qin empires may not know about the Gu family's past, but there are many forces in the Han and Qin empires who know the Gu family's glorious past at this moment. They spoke only with a faint sigh, but it fell into the ears of the Zheng family. It made Zhang Yunshan and Zhang Baiwei and other Zheng family cultivators were filled with endless regrets, which lasted for a long time. Everyone in the Zheng family regretted it very much, but their reactions were ignored by Gu Changqing at all. After dealing with the invading enemies, Gu Changqing looked directly at Xuan Huang and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Xuan Huang, I may have to trouble you next time." Oh, what does fellow Taoist Gu need? Xuan Huang raised her eyebrows, and there was a little more curiosity in her eyes. In Xuan Huang's opinion, Gu Changqing's strength was a little stronger than hers, in addition to this mysterious gray-robed old man as a protector. Xuan Huang really couldn't think of anything else she could do to help Gu Changqing. Gu Changqing pointed at the spiritual boat left by the group of people from Daluo Tiangong and smiled slightly. Daluo Tiangong, after this battle, the strongest palace master and deputy palace master have been destroyed by me. The remaining ones, even if there is a divine emperor, will not be a match for Dao Yu. I would like to ask Dao Yu to go on my behalf, completely subdue Daluo Tiangong, and take over the legacy of Daluo Tiangong from now on. Daluo Tiangong will no longer exist. There will only be Zhuantian Palace. The palace master and deputy palace master of Daluo Tiangong, as well as Yue Baifeng, have been killed by me. But the remaining resources of Daluo Tiangong, as well as the various spiritual veins, spiritual mines, and other industries it controls. It is also a rich resource for the Gu family. Therefore, Gu Changqing simply arranged Xuan Huang to take over the remaining power of Daluo Tiangong. On the one hand, these resources will not be wasted. On the other hand, the sphere of influence of the Gu family can also be expanded to the central part of the spiritual domain with the help of the legacy of Daluo Tiangong. It is much faster than the Gu family working hard to expand and lay the foundation. If the remaining people in Daluo Tiangong know what's good for them, it's fine to accept them under your command. If they don't know what's good for them, Gu Changqing warned, and Xuan Huang smiled slightly. And before Gu Changqing finished speaking, he said, "Don't worry. Dao Yu Gu, I will send those who don't know what's good for them to see their loyal palace master." Xuan Huang immediately took the order and left, and listened to Gu Changqing's arrangement for Daluo Tiangong. In a few words, Daluo Tiangong and the entire inheritance were completely annihilated. The powerful people around who were persuaded by their younger generations to come and help Daluo Tiangong felt bitter on their lips, seeing Gu Changqing's eyes looking at them. These Xuan Huang Tian Huangs who wanted to hold on for a while and show some backbone in front of Gu Changqing all felt their knees go weak. Without waiting for Gu Changqing to speak, he knelt down first. "Evergreen God King, we have offended you before. Fortunately, we did not hurt your family. Please forgive us for our mistakes. Forgive your mistakes." Gu Changqing looked at these pitiful strong men in the spiritual realm who were kneeling and begging. With a cold expression, "Then what price are you prepared to pay?" "Price? This we didn't do anything." An emperor couldn't help but speak after hearing this. Didn't do anything. Gu Changqing glanced at him coldly. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? If I didn't use the Juxian sword formation and didn't show my superior strength, would these people still watch the battle from the side without taking action? In the final analysis, it's just because I'm strong enough. If you don't do anything, you can be guiltless. Where in the world is there such a good thing? If you want to be guiltless, there is only one possibility. That is to go back to the past and refuse the invitation of the Lord of Daluo Palace. But can you do it? Gu Changqing waved his hand. I will only give you 7 days to raise a satisfactory compensation within 7 days. Otherwise, I will personally visit your clan family. Listening to Gu Changqing's decisive words, these masters of the spirit realm were completely crying without tears. But with Tianli and Shenkui standing by to intimidate them, they didn't dare to say anything after all. They left in disgrace and returned to the clan to contact the top leaders and find ways to raise resources to compensate Gu Changqing. There is no need to say more about their various operations to teach their children a lesson on the way back. And after doing all this, Gu Changqing's consciousness also sensed a rather unfamiliar aura behind him, which made him look back, and then he remembered, on his side, there was another genius named Luo Shenyue who seemed to be the former leader of the spirit ranking. Thinking of this, Gu Changqing couldn't help but look back and looked at the heroic yet beautiful girl with curiosity in his eyes. By the way, this is Miss Luo Shenyue, right? I wonder why Miss Luo came to find me before? Hearing Gu Changqing's gentle words, Luo Shenyue couldn't help but twitch the corners of her mouth and could only laugh awkwardly. No, it's okay. I'm just passing by. Just kidding. After witnessing Gu Changqing's sword formation, suppressing the 4 emperors, and having the Tianlian god puppet, a protector comparable to the Venerable, even if Luo Shenyue was a martial arts fanatic, she would never have the courage to challenge Gu Changqing. She is a martial arts fanatic, not an idiot. At that time, if it weren't for the Daluo Tangong Palace Master using his trump card, taking the magic pill, and moving out the ancestral artifact, even without the venerable protector, Gu Changqing alone could have destroyed the 4 emperors. After exchanging pleasantries, Luo Shenyue hurriedly said goodbye and left Jianglan City. She wanted to tell her family what she saw and heard today as soon as possible. In fact, it's not just Luo Shenyue. As the Battle of Jianglan City came to an end, the monks who watched the battle were all reporting the results of the battle back to their respective sects and families at the fastest speed, especially those masters from the central part of the spiritual domain who came to help with the Daluo Tiangong. They almost pushed the speed of the spiritual boat to the limit, fearing that they would miss the 7-day deadline set by Gu Changqing. And with their return, in addition, Xuanhuang entered the central part of the spiritual domain and raised the 2 big flags of Gu family and Zhuantian Palace. With absolutely strong strength, he took over the legacy of Daluo Tiangong. The entire spiritual domain was in turmoil for a while. Central part of the spiritual domain, Hua family, the Patriarch's Hall, as the entire spiritual domain. They are one of the few Saint Emperor family. Even the God Emperor giants have to be respectful in front of the Hua family. All this is because the Hua family has a supreme ancestor, the top giant of the Saint Emperor realm. Therefore, no one dared to provoke even the servants of the Hua family in the spirit realm. Any manager of the Hua family in the God King realm could be on par with the Emperor realm strongman. But now, the Hua family is shrouded in an extremely solemn atmosphere. And the cause of all this is that just yesterday, in the Hua family ancestral hall, the order card of the eldest daughter of the Hua family, Hua Liani, was shattered on the spot. Go check it for me. Find out who killed my daughter Hua Tianxuan. I want him to be torn into pieces. Hua Tianxuan, the head of the Hua family, is a generation of God Emperor giant. At this moment, the mood is difficult to calm down, and there is anger in the words that cannot be hidden. Master, we have found out. A steward came to Hua Tianxuan tremblingly and respectfully presented the information he had found. The eldest lady went to Daluo Palace a few days ago and set off for the southern part of the spiritual domain with the young master of Daluo Palace, Yu Baifeng. It is said that they are taking revenge on the Gu family in the southern part of the spiritual domain, located in the Han Qin Empire. As for the cause, it is because the Gu family killed Yue Baifeng's sister, Yue Lingshan. The cultivators of the Han and Qin Empire killed my daughter. The steward's voice has not yet fallen. Behind Hua Tianxuan, a woman with luxurious clothes and graceful demeanor turned out. But at this moment, her eyes were full of murderous intent. What are you waiting for? Dispatch your men now. Destroy the Han Qin Empire. I want all the people of that Han Qin Empire, whether they are cultivators or mortals. They must be buried with my daughter. Madame, it's not the Han Qin Empire. It's the Gu family cultivators of the Han Qin Empire. Listening to the words of the Hua family's eldest lady, the steward was panicked and added hurriedly, but the Hua family's eldest lady didn't even listen to him and looked directly at Hua Tianxuan. Tianxuan, do you nod your head? Hua Tianxuan was originally very angry, but his wife's operation of directly asking the entire Han Qin Empire to be buried with her was a bit too extreme in his opinion. But looking at the resentful eyes of the Hua family's eldest lady, Hua Tianxuan hesitated for a moment and nodded. After all, Hua Tianxuan not only had a daughter, Hua Liani, but also several sons. But those sons were all born to concubines, and Hua Liani was the only legitimate daughter. It was reasonable for his wife to be so angry. As for the other cultivators and mortals in the Han Qin Empire, let them die. If you want to blame someone, just blame them and the Gu family, because they came from the same place. Immediately, Hua Tianxuan opened his mouth and prepared to give an order, but he hadn't said anything yet. Swish! Inside the hall, a figure suddenly appeared, with a mighty pressure that swept across the entire hall in an instant, causing Hua Tianxuan and the nearly insane wife of the Hua family to calm down briefly. Looking at the person who came, they all bowed down in a hurry, with an extremely respectful attitude. My child daughter-in-law. I pay my respects to the ancestor. The person who came was none other than Hua, the ancestors of the Hua family, the entire spiritual realm, are all powerful and boundless Saint Emperor giants. And the eldest lady of the Hua family was extremely excited when she saw the ancestor coming out of retreat. She thought that the ancestor wanted to avenge her daughter. But before she could open her mouth, she heard the cold words of the ancestor of the Hua family. This matter ends here. Words like today's to kill the Hanshin Empire and destroy the Gu family must not be mentioned again. In addition, the ancestor of the Hua family did not even look at the eldest lady of the Hua family. His eyes were only fixed on the patriarch Hua Tianxuan. Tianxuan, you immediately arrange people, prepare generous gifts, go to the Hanshin Empire, and personally apologize to the Gu family. This matter must be done quickly. Do you understand? What? Looking at the serious look of his own ancestor, not to mention the head of the Hua family and the eldest lady. Even the stewards and worshippers in the hall were a little stunned, with their eyes wide open, and they all felt that their brains were almost unable to turn. Their daughter was killed by the enemy, and it was fine that they could not take revenge, but they were also asked to apologize to the enemy, especially the eldest lady of the Hua family. Even the ancestor was in front of her. She could not suppress her anger. Just as she was about to speak, she was stopped by Hua Tianxuan, as the head of the Hua family. His reaction was much faster, and he realized the problem at the first time. Father, the other party is very strong. The ancestor of the Hua family turned around and left only 2 words, which made Hua Tianxuan and the eldest lady of the Hua family completely speechless. Your Excellency. The 2 words were like thunder, making Hua Tianxuan and the eldest lady of the Hua family feel a little unstable. It was not until the ancestor left for a long time that they slowly came back to their senses. But they did not dare to mention any words of revenge. A venerable, looking at the entire spiritual realm. He is an invincible existence. Their Hua family only has one Saint Emperor ancestor. How can they afford to offend him? Instead of revenge, it is better to take advantage of youth and get another one. Time flies, and it's already 3 months later. In the past 3 months, the discussion about the Gu family in the spirit realm has also calmed down from the initial boiling point. But when people mention the Gu family, they are all in awe. Today, the Gu family can be said to be in its heyday, especially in the central part of the spirit realm. Many forces headed by the Hua family sent envoys, gave generous gifts, and apologized. In addition, Emperor Xuan reorganized the Xuan Palace to be the pioneer of the Gu family. Let the Gu family have the momentum of the overlord of the spirit realm. However, the Gu family didn't care much about these things. At this moment, the core members of the Gu family followed Gu Changqing and Zhang Liangxian, as well as Gu Yunqi and Gu Qingchen, and entered the Dream Spring, and began to use the Dream Spring to cleanse themselves. It must be said that the Dream Spring is worthy of being a blessed land left by the ancients. The abundance of spiritual charm contained in it makes Gu Changqing a little amazed. During the time of practicing in Mengyuquan, Gu Changqing's cultivation can be said to have made great progress. Just when Gu Changqing was practicing quietly, he raised his eyebrows and felt that the power of his blood began to boil in his body, and the surging blood became more pure and condensed. As a result, Gu Changqing's strength was improved again. Is this feeling? The blood is revived? There was a hint of surprise in Gu Changqing's eyes. At this moment, there was not only Gu Changqing and Meng Youquan, Gu Yuan and other core members of the Gu family, as well as Gu Yunqi and Gu Qingchen, suddenly became more condensed. This situation was a sign of the revival of the Saint Clan blood hidden in the Gu family. But the problem is, for the Saint Clan blood to revive, someone has always had to break through to the Emperor realm. Although Gu Changqing's combat power is amazing, his realm is still a long way from the Emperor realm. It seems that someone in the Gu family has broken through to the Imperial realm before me. Gu Changqing smiled slightly, with a little more curiosity in his eyes. He could feel that the person who broke through was not from the Zhanglincheng Gu family. And of course, it could not be the Wangqin Island Gu family where Gu Qinger was. It should be a branch of the Gu family that was lost in other areas of the spirit realm, or even outside the spirit realm. Gu Changqing was not surprised by this situation. In the past, the Gu family was extremely glorious, and its branches and branches covered countless large domains. It is normal for other bloodlines to drift in foreign domains. It's just that Gu Changqing thought that he would be the first to break through the Imperial realm and revive the bloodline of the Gu family. But now he has been robbed by others. However, this is good news. It seems that other members of my Gu family are doing well, and not all branches are as weak as the Zhanglincheng Gu family and the Wangqin Island Gu family before. The blood of the Saint Clan has not completely withered. Gu Changqing smiled slightly, put away his distracting thoughts, and continued to retreat, just as Gu Changqing continued to retreat. In the Nangshan Divine Continent, Qianyu, Kangming King City Lord's mansion, the Gu family, at this moment, is celebrating. Congratulations, ancestor, for breaking into the Imperial realm. Revive the blood of our Gu family's Saint Clan. The children of the Gu family in Kangming City were all very excited, facing the depths of the city lord's mansion and kneeling on the ground. There was excitement in their eyes that could not be hidden, and in the depths of the city lord's mansion, inside the Gu family ancestral hall, an old man with white hair and beard, who looked almost 1,000 years old, slowly stood up. With every step he took, the breath of aging subsided a little, and his hunched body straightened a little. When he walked to the main entrance of the ancestral hall, although his appearance was still old, his spirit and energy were full to the extreme. There was a gleam in his eyes that made people dare not look directly at him. His voice was like a bell, and at this moment, it spread to all directions. Pass the order down. Today, I, Gunantian, enter the Imperial Realm for my holy clan. I will revive the bloodline. My Kangming Gu family should be the main line of the Gu family, and since it is the main line, it should be responsible. I order the 36 elders of my Gu clan and the 72 main lineage geniuses to enter the ancestral temple, take the holy artifacts, and set off today to travel to various regions to find the lost bloodline of my Gu family. If there are people with outstanding talents who are worthy of cultivation, they can be brought back to the main line and carefully cultivated to help my Gu clan revive and build its strength, but you can't force them. If there are branch lineage geniuses who don't want to come here, you can't force them. You should give them elixirs and food. Let them practice well at home, so as not to delay their talents. And don't do anything that will harm the prestige of the main line. Today, my Gu clan is different from the past. We should unite as one. Do you understand? Listening to the words of their own ancestor, the children of the Kangming Gu family were all excited and bowed down. The 36 Kangming Gu family elders and the 72 main lineage geniuses who were named stood up immediately. Their eyes were extremely excited. This matter was the first major thing the ancestor ordered after entering the Imperial Realm. If it is done well, it will definitely be a great achievement. This group of people immediately took out the holy weapon, bid farewell to the ancestor, took the elixir and precious medicine given to the weak branches, and other cultivation resources and inherited skills, and then each of them drove the spirit boat and set sail at this moment. Meng Yuken. Boom! Accompanied by a mighty aura. It rose up. Gu Changqing's eyes also showed joy. Now, after the end of his training in Meng Yuquan, his realm has entered the level of perfection of the God King. It is only one step away from breaking into the Emperor realm. Unfortunately, Meng Yuquan's training time is limited. Otherwise, if Gu Changqing is given another month, Gu Changqing is sure to break directly into the Emperor level. However, Gu Changqing is already quite satisfied with the improvement of his strength. As the realm breaks into the perfection of the God King, the strength of his Tianlian Shenqi is also improved synchronously, and it directly jumps into the level of perfection of Tianzhen. In addition to Gu Changqing, Gu in the realms of others have also improved considerably. As for his wife Zhang Liangxin, her realm has even reached the late stage of Xuanwang. At this time, Zhang Liangxin's belly has already bulged. It seems that it will not be long before her third daughter will be born, and Xuanhuang's strength has also recovered a lot. Although it is not as good as her peak, it is much stronger than before when she faced Deluo Tiangong, and has recovered to the level of Shenhuang late stage. Gu Yuanao is planning to arrange people in the Hui clan to see if he could find out which branch has entered the Emperor realm and contact them in advance. But he hasn't finished planning yet. Swoosh! A jade talisman flew in the distance. It was the information sent by the subordinates of Xuan Tiangong who were instructed by Gu Changqing to find out the news about the Nalan family. Did you find out a list of Tianzhao and Qianyu? What's the use of this? Gu Changqing was confused, but when he unfolded the Tianzhao list, his pupils shrank slightly for a moment, because on this Qian list, the name of the fifth place was clearly written, Qianless Fifth, Nalan Qingyuan. Looking at this list, Gu Changqing's eyes lit up. The name Nalan Qingyuan was a little unfamiliar, but if you change the surname to Gu Qingyuan, it will match the name Gu Changqing remembered, and Gu Yuan next to him couldn't sit still. Kinger. This Nalan Qingyuan may be your sister. Gu Changqing nodded. Although he and his sister had never met before, the fact that a giant like the Nalan family was willing to take her back and accept her into the family meant that his sister must have extraordinary talent. And Qianyu, among the many regions of Nangshuan Shenzhou, is a very rich and large region. Lingyu is just a small region in Nangshuan Shenzhou that barely ranks among the middle and lower reaches. The Emperor realm can be called a venerable, and the God Emperor and Saint Emperor can be a hegemon. But in a large region like Qianyu, only those who reach the venerable realm can be considered as the overlord of one side. His sister, on the Qianyu Tianzhao list, can be ranked 5th, which is quite consistent with her talent. I will go to Xuantian Palace and ask the person who got the news to see if he has more detailed information. I will go with you. At this time, Gu Yuan could not care about the matter of the branch entering the Emperor realm. His own son even has a protector at the level of a venerable? How can the Imperial realm be more important than the whereabouts of his daughter and wife? Gu Changqing also understood his father's excitement and nodded in agreement immediately. He asked Liangxin to take his son and daughter back to the Gu family. On his side, he took Xuanhuang and Gu Yen and set off first to Xuantian Palace to learn more detailed information. The three of them were very excited and did not delay. Speeding up, they soon came to Xuantian Palace, summoned the Imperial realm who had found out the news, and asked him carefully. However, Unfortunately, the strength of this imperial realm was limited, and the information he found out about the Nalan family was only the list of Qianyu. Well, with this information, at least there are some clues and clues. Besides, Qianyu is a large domain with well-informed information, far beyond my Lingyu. There will always be gains if I go there. Gu Changqing made a decision in his heart. With his somewhat lost father, he and Emperor Zhuan set out on the return journey, just as Gu Changqing made a decision and prepared to return to his clan. At the same time, in the Han and Qin empires, on the endless sea of clouds, but a space crack suddenly broke open, and then a spirit boat broke out of the space crack. On the spirit boat, the flag fluttered, but it was written with 4 big characters: Kangminggu family. The holy artifact has a feeling that there should be the blood of my Gu family here. Let me see the feeling. Well, it seems to be a small place called Janglin City on the spirit boat. An old man in a red robe with a graceful demeanor twisted his beard and looked at the surrounding geographical map displayed on the spirit boat. With a gleam in his eyes, change direction. No need to go to other places. There is nothing to see in this small place. Go directly to Janglin City and see how the Gu family members in this area are doing. If anyone dares to bully my Gu family, just kill them and help our Janglin branch. Yes. Immediately, on the spirit boat, all the Gu family cultivators responded with laughter, with fighting spirit in their eyes, and the light of self-confidence was even brighter. Rushing towards the direction of Janglin Gu family,